This is an ongoing series of hearings we are doing on First Amendment liberties and protecting those First Amendments, whether it's on college campuses, whether it's from the pulpit in some of our churches, or whether it's now today about the freedom of the press. So again, we thank you for being here, and we'll start with our opening statements. When Jefferson once said, "When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When governments fear the people, there is liberty." And I would like to kind of offer that as a context for evaluating this issue today as we move through it, this important thing. Critical freedom of the press is pursuit of truth without government entanglements or intimidation. Yet we have seen previous administrations wiretapping journalists' phones and issuing subpoenas for the identity of their sources. For this reason, we signed on to my good friend Professor Raskin's Free Flow of Information Act, which limits the government in compelling a journalist to reveal his or her sources. Professor Raskin and I may not agree often, but we are both committed to reaffirming our First Amendment freedoms, especially the guarantee government cannot intimidate or censor the Town Crier, be it the chief contributor to the New York Times or a freelancer in the 4th District of Ohio. But it should come as no surprise that I advocate for government having the least consequential impact on Americans' lives, especially at the federal level where politicized prosecutors are unaccountable to the electorate. The creation of a federal shield law like H.R. 4382 is a reassurance for journalists and Americans alike that their government cannot stifle the flow of information. This legislation acts as a powerful antidote to government encroachment by placing a more stringent check on their investigative powers. And those that improperly release classified information that jeopardizes national security and public safety should, of course, be prosecuted. But we cannot look the other way while our government intimidates journalists and tries to get their confidential sources. We need to keep a focus on that issue. Yesterday, committee staff were briefed by the Justice Department related to their internal policies for obtaining information from reporters. This was in response to a briefing request from Chairman Gowdy and fellow co-sponsor of the Free Flow of Information Act, Congressman Meadows. I, along with members of the committee on both sides of the aisle, aim to continue to pressure our Justice Department to live up to the ideals set forth in the First Amendment. And I want to thank Professor Raskin again for his leadership on such an important legislative effort. And I'm glad to be working together in a bipartisan manner on this piece of legislation. I would just further add, you think about what we've witnessed in the last few years, where you had the agency with the power and influence that it has over Americans' lives, the Internal Revenue Service, systematically and for a sustained period of time, target people for their political beliefs. And then you see what's taken place recently, what we've recently learned at the Department of Justice and the FBI relative to the previous campaign and what was taken to the FISA court. This is serious. And then when you add to it what we saw just a couple months ago with the reporter for the New York Times who had everything grabbed by the government, this is a serious issue. That's why we have the discussion in the hearing today, and that's why we have our witnesses, and it's why I'm pleased to be working with my colleagues in a bipartisan fashion. And with that, I would yield to the gentleman from Maryland for his comments.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.